Yes, we're being recorded now. So thank you all for coming. It's so great to see some of your faces and see your little tiles on Zoom. I am grateful to have all of you in my class, and I wanted to go over a couple of things about your source-based essay before I get into taking your questions. So let's begin by reviewing the assignment itself and making sure that we're all on the same page about what this assignment is asking for, because I had some concerns in some of your topic reflections that there was some confusion about the focus of this assignment. So let's take a look at that assignment. All right. This assignment asks for you to examine 4 sources and discuss the rhetorical situation of each of these sources. So this assignment is asking for you to do something very specific. It is not a research essay. You are not developing your own stance about your topic. You are discussing 4 sources about your topic. And just the components of the rhetorical situation are the author, audience, and purpose. And I also want you to discuss the tone and the genre. So I want you to be making very specific claims about who the audience is and what the purpose of the article is. And I want you to back up those claims with evidence from the text. So for example, if you're looking at a magazine, if you're looking at a piece from the New York Times as one of your, let me make sure I get the types of sources correct. If you're looking at an article from the New York Times as your newspaper article, and you want to claim that the audience is educated individuals, perhaps of the upper class, you could back up that claim with the fact that the New York Times is a subscription service and you have to either be affiliated with the university or pay for the subscription. So that probably correlates with a more high class or more upper class audience. And additionally, I'd like for you to cite language in the article that perhaps would be inaccessible to someone without a high level of education. So like, is the author making assumptions about what the audience knows? Do you have to arrive at the article with what do you have to know in order to understand the article, which includes information, but also includes words, like what kind of vocabulary does the author expect the audience to understand? So all those things clue you into who the audience might be. So in contrast, if you're looking at maybe a BuzzFeed article, the audience is probably going to be younger, as evidenced by use of slang and use of easy to understand language. So I want you to be discussing those things in detail. And the length is 1,500 to 750 words. And I imagine that you'll probably spend 250 words performing a rhetorical analysis of each source, and then about 500 words synthesizing the relationship between these sources. Like you're discussing 4 sources about the same topic, but they're all going to have different rhetorical situation. Like a scholarly article does not serve the same function in society as a Vox article. Very different things. And they're aimed at different audiences, attempting to get them to perform different actions. Yeah, so I am expecting a lot of analysis of the rhetorical situation and very little summary. I would like for you to, if possible, pare down your summary of each of your texts to 1 to 2 sentences maximum, and then spend the rest of your space analyzing the rhetorical situation. Any questions so far? Let me stop the screen share so I can see the chat and see if there are any questions. Okay, then we can move on to talking about scholarly sources. Toshi, yes, this PDF is already on Blackboard. You can find it under the source. You can find it. Sorry, I forgot to share my screen. You can, let me show you where you can find this. So if you go to Blackboard, click on Art Class, go to Assignments, and go to Source-Based Essay Submissions. The PDF is right here. This is where you can find the description of the assignment. So yes, that is on Blackboard. Leslie asked, do we have to follow a writing format? Can you clarify what you mean by that? Do you mean like citation format?
I mean, like, for example, like MLA.
Yes, I would. So you do have to have citations for each of your sources. My preference is for you to use MLA citations. That's what I'm most comfortable helping you with. But if you have another citation style that you're more familiar with that you would like to use, that's fine with me as well. So I would just like for you to be consistent in your citations. So when you do cite something from your source, you need to offer some sort of in-text citation, probably parenthetical if you're going to be using MLA. And then at the end of your essay, you will have a works cited page with the citations for each of your 4 sources. And you shouldn't have more than 4 sources for this assignment. You don't need to do any more research outside of finding these 4 sources. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So something that I noticed in going over your sources is that some of you were having a hard time with scholarly sources. So if you got feedback back from me that your source doesn't count as a scholarly source, please know that you can resubmit and I will change your grade. If you submit to me a scholarly source after the Zoom session, I'll change your grade. I forgot to go over how to find a scholarly source, so that's my bad. So I'll show you now how I recommend that you find your scholarly sources. So I'm going to start at the CCNY library website. I'm going to go to databases. And one place that you can look for scholarly sources is JSTOR, which some of you probably are already familiar with. JSTOR, and you're going to have to use your email login credentials to have access to this database and other databases when you're not on City College campus. So JSTOR is a great place to find scholarly sources, and anything you find on JSTOR is going to fit the criteria for an academic source. So what I mean by a scholarly article is an article that is peer-reviewed, which means that it's published by an expert and reviewed by an expert, and it's published in a scholarly journal. So JSTOR is a place where you can find academic articles, and the database that I recommend for the types of topics that we're working on in this class is called Opposing Viewpoints and Contexts. So you see the alphabet up here, click on O, click on Opposing Viewpoints and Contexts. This is my favorite database for our purposes. You see on the front page, there are a list of like different topics that you can explore. It's also a great place to go if you're ever unsure about like picking a contemporary topic. Let's search for, I know some of you are doing abortion. Now, the difference between opposing viewpoints in context and JSTOR is that all of the sources on JSTOR are those scholarly articles. Opposing viewpoints in context offers you a number of different types of sources. So this is like an encyclopedia article, and this does not count as a scholarly source, does not count towards any of your sources. It's just an overview of the topic. You can see here, there are academic journal articles. These are going to be your scholarly sources. So if you're using opposing viewpoints in context, click on that academic journals filter, and it'll only show you academic sources. I'm using scholarly sources and academic sources interchangeably here. I hope that's not confusing anyone. What I love about opposing viewpoints in context is that it also shows you different types of sources. So you see, you can find your news source on here, your magazine source on here, and your website source on here if you like. So it's a great resource and gives you a number of different types of sources that you can draw on. So potentially you could find all of your sources for this source-based essay on opposing viewpoints in context. All right, any questions about finding academic sources?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you please repeat how many of each type of source we're supposed to find?
Yes, you're supposed to find one magazine article, one website, one newspaper article, and one academic journal article. So one of each different type of sources.
Thank you. I have a quick question also. Is it okay, like, if we change our sources after the fact? Like, I know you saw we put on like the discussion board what we're going to use. Is it okay for any changes of sources to happen, like, as we write the essay?
Sure, if you find a better source as you through the process of researching and writing the essay, I am totally fine with you changing your sources. If you have questions about whether or not a source is suitable for our purposes, you can always email me and I'll check it over for you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Michelle.
Yeah, on the SB video, you said there was going to be a student example. Where can I find this on Blackboard?
Oh, I forgot to put up a student example. I will put up a student example right after we get off of this meeting. Thanks for the reminder, Michelle. I think that you will all find that pretty helpful. Other questions? All right, let's look at the timeline. Let me have so many syllabi pulled up. Okay, so let's take a look at the timeline. So I'm going to correct this on the syllabus. It says that your first draft is due on the 20th, which obviously has already happened and doesn't make any sense in the context of this timeline. Your first draft is going to be due on September 30th. So you have 6 days before your first draft is due. You have already posted your topic reflection and your links to 4 sources. So the requirements for this first draft is just that it meets that minimum word requirement. So as long as you're hitting that 1,500 word mark, you are meeting the requirements for the draft. That's the only criteria I'm going to be grading your drafts on. And then the following week, you're going to be participating in peer review. And then your final draft is going to be due on October 7th. Do you all have any questions? Any concerns? All right, we can go ahead and wrap it up there then. If any other questions pop up that you think of, you're always welcome to email me. I'm always happy to hop on a Zoom one-on-one with you if you want to have a conversation about your essay. I do not grade student drafts and I do not offer like extensive feedback on drafts unless you make a Zoom appointment with me. If you do want me to go over your draft, I am more than happy to hop on Zoom with you and go over your draft, but I will not be grading your drafts in detail unless you ask me to and make a Zoom appointment with me. All right, well, it's great to see some of your faces, and I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to reading your source-based essays.